Ryan Carter, CEO of Carter Technologies, was the kind of man everyone noticed. With his jet black hair, sharp jawline, and cold, calculating eyes, he was the embodiment of success and power in the tech world. His company was a leader in its field, with thousands of employees, partners, and revenue numbers that other startups could only dream of. But behind that glittering success, his personal life was an empty void. Ryan had never believed in love. He always saw it as a distraction, a weakness that could slow down the progress of a person destined to be great. His childhood had taught him to keep his emotions in check. His mother had died when he was young, and his father, a driven businessman, had always been too absorbed in work to offer any emotional support. From an early age, Ryan had learned that to survive and thrive, he had to shut off his feelings and focus solely on his career. The lessons were clear. Success was the only thing that mattered today. As usual, Ryan walked into the office with a stack of reports in his hands. He made his way straight to the boardroom, barely acknowledging anyone along the way. For Ryan, everything in life could be solved with strategy, and intellect. Emotion had no place in his world. People around him, from directors to employees, knew that he was untouchable, a figure of authority who kept everyone at arm's length. Today's meeting was crucial, an important partnership with a potential investor. But as the conversation began, Ryan found his attention wandering. His eyes were drawn to Lily Dawson, a striking woman in her late 20s, representing one of their key business partners. She was sharp, confident, and articulate, offering valuable insights into the deal. But it wasn't her business acumen that caught Ryan's attention. It was her presence. There was something about the way she carried herself, her self-assurance, that made him feel unsettled. Lily wasn't impressed by Ryan's power or his reputation. She was here to discuss business, not to fawn over a CEO. Her directness, paired with a calm demeanor, made Ryan feel something he wasn't used to: vulnerability. For the first time in a long time, Ryan wasn't sure how to approach a situation. After the meeting, as everyone filtered out of the boardroom, Lily stayed behind to discuss some finer details. The room fell into an uneasy silence as they were left alone. "Is there anything else you'd like to discuss?" Lily asked, breaking the tension in her usual professional manner. Ryan took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus. He was used to controlling situations, to being the one in charge, but Lily was different. There was something about her that made him feel off balance. "Actually, I have a question," Ryan said, his voice almost hesitant. "How do you manage to stay so independent in your work? You seem unaffected by the usual pressures that come with it." Lily smiled, a small, knowing smile that conveyed both warmth and wisdom. "Independence doesn't mean being detached, Mr. Carter. It means not letting the work consume you. It's about balance, knowing when to push forward and when to step back. You can be fully committed to your career without letting it define you." Ryan felt an unfamiliar discomfort. He had spent years defining himself by his work, and now here was someone telling him there was more to life than the empire he had built. "You're saying it's possible to balance both?" Ryan asked, a hint of doubt in his voice. Lily's eyes met his, unwavering. "Yes, I believe it is. But it takes a certain kind of strength, one that doesn't rely on power or control, but on understanding the bigger picture." Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying her. There was something about Lily, something that made her stand out in a room full of executives and professionals. She wasn't intimidated by him, nor was she desperate to win his approval. She was confident, grounded, And perhaps, for the first time in years, Ryan felt like he was the one being scrutinized as the meeting came to an end. Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that Lily had just given him a glimpse into a world he had been too afraid to explore. He had built his life around control, around his work, but she was suggesting that there was more to it than just success. Could it be possible to have both? Could he have the life he had always wanted, not just professionally, but personally? Lily, too, felt the weight of the moment. There was something undeniably magnetic about Ryan, though she had no intentions of being swept up by his world. She had seen too many men like him, distant, emotionally unavailable, focused solely on the next big deal. But there was something in Ryan that hinted at a man who had lost touch with what truly mattered. She wasn't sure if she could ever change that about him. But she knew one thing: he wasn't like anyone she had worked with before. As she walked out of the room, she couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to peel back the layers of Ryan Carter's carefully constructed life. Was it possible to reach him, or would he remain a mystery, locked away in his empire? For now, Lily pushed the thoughts aside. She had a job to do. But as the days went by, she realized that Ryan Carter was no ordinary CEO, and whatever happened next, it wasn't going to be business as usual. The next few weeks passed in a blur for Ryan Carter. His days were consumed with meetings, deadlines, and the constant pressure of managing Carter Technologies. But despite the never-ending tide of work, he couldn't shake the memory of Lily Dawson. Her calm demeanor, her sharp intellect, and most disconcerting of all, her ability to make him feel something he'd long since buried. All lingered in his mind. Ryan had always been in control of every situation, every conversation. But Lily, she was an enigma. She didn't need to impress him, and she didn't seem fazed by his usual tactics. He wasn't sure if he was irritated by it or impressed. One afternoon, as he walked into his office, his assistant, Emily, handed him a folder with the latest quarterly projections. "Mr. Carter, I've also scheduled the meeting with the Dawson team for tomorrow," she added, glancing at him with a knowing look. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Dawson?" "Yes, Lily Dawson's team. They're here for the next round of negotiations. You asked for an update, remember?" "Right," Ryan said, leaning back in his chair. "I'll be there." His mind raced as he thought about the upcoming meeting. This was just another business deal, another step toward expansion. There was no reason why his thoughts should be consumed by a simple colleague. Yet, as the clock ticked closer to the meeting, his pulse quickened. He couldn't help but wonder how Lily would behave this time. Would she be as confident as the first time they met, or would she reveal a different side of herself? The conference room was large, sleek, and designed for maximum efficiency. Ryan entered the room with his usual air of authority, followed by his team of advisors. As he glanced around the table, his gaze landed on Lily. She was seated at the opposite end, her posture straight and her expression calm. She looked up at him, and for a brief second, he saw something flicker in her eyes, perhaps curiosity, perhaps something else. Lily smiled politely, standing as Ryan entered. "Mr. Carter, it's good to see you again." "Lily," Ryan replied, offering a brief nod. He wasn't sure why, but the formal greeting felt somehow inadequate. The tension in the air was palpable. "Shall we begin?" she said, gesturing toward the presentation on the table. Her tone was professional, but there was an underlying warmth to it that Ryan couldn't quite place as they dove into the details of the project. Ryan found himself distracted by Lily's ease and poise. She wasn't just another negotiator. There was something more to her, a depth that made it difficult for him to ignore. She spoke with confidence, but never arrogance, and she had a way of listening that made people feel heard. It was a rare quality in the corporate world, and it made Ryan feel ... unsettled. The meeting went smoothly, with both teams agreeing on several key terms, but Ryan's mind wasn't entirely on the deal. Instead, he found himself studying Lily more than he cared to admit. How did she remain so calm under pressure? How could someone so driven in her career maintain a sense of humility and compassion? These were questions Ryan wasn't used to asking after the meeting. As everyone gathered their things, Ryan caught Lily's eye once again. She was standing near the door, scrolling through her phone. "Lily," he said, his voice more uncertain than he intended. "I wanted to thank you for your input today. It was ... insightful." She looked up at him, and her lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. It's always a pleasure working with someone who actually listens." Ryan hesitated, his usual response of brushing off compliments feeling out of place. "I'll admit, I'm impressed by your approach." Her smile softened, and for a moment, Ryan felt a flicker of something far less calculated than anything he'd ever felt before. He quickly shook the thought away. "I believe in building partnerships, not just making deals," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of warmth. Ryan nodded, his mind still racing. "Perhaps we should talk more about that. Outside of work, I mean." Lily tilted her head, clearly intrigued. "Are you suggesting a business dinner, or something more personal?" she asked, her tone light but pointed. Ryan could feel the heat rising in his chest. He wasn't used to being called out on his intentions so directly. "Maybe both," he said, his voice betraying a hint of vulnerability he hadn't expected. She paused for a moment, her gaze steady, before she replied, "I'll let you know if I'm free." As Ryan walked out of the room, he felt a strange sense of excitement in his chest. It wasn't the kind of excitement he'd felt after sealing a deal or securing a successful acquisition. No, this was different, this was personal. He had always prided himself on his ability to control everything around him. But with Lily, it was as if the rules of engagement had changed. She didn't play by the same standards he was used to. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan found himself unsure of how to proceed. A few days later, Ryan found himself once again staring at his phone screen. It had been hours since Lily had sent him a simple message confirming their dinner plans. "I'm free Thursday at 7. Let's talk." He stared at those words, wondering if he had made a mistake. If inviting her to dinner was too soon, too personal. But then again, he hadn't been able to shake her off his mind since that meeting. Ryan had spent his life in control. He was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, a man whose every decision was calculated, every move strategic. But when it came to Lily, his usual confidence faltered. She made him feel like an open book, one he wasn't sure he was ready to share. Thursday came, and Ryan found himself sitting at a corner booth in a sleek, upscale restaurant, waiting. The evening was cool, the city lights glittering outside, and yet, inside, he felt warmer than usual. His fingers drummed lightly on the table as he glanced at the door every few moments. Lily arrived promptly at 7, wearing a simple black dress that clung to her figure in a way that made Ryan's breath catch. She was effortlessly elegant, and Ryan couldn't help but notice how much more real and raw she seemed in this intimate setting. The boardroom version of Lily, the composed, professional negotiator, was nowhere to be found. She was just ... herself. "Mr. Carter," she greeted him with a playful smirk. and Ryan couldn't help but smile in return. "I hope you didn't wait too long." "No, just a few minutes," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. He gestured to the seat opposite him. "Please, have a seat." As Lily sat down, the conversation began with the usual pleasantries, small talk about the city, the weather, and of course, work. But the more they talked, the more Ryan felt a shift. Lily wasn't just a colleague anymore. She wasn't just the professional businesswoman he had worked with. She was someone he wanted to know, someone he couldn't ignore. "So, how do you manage everything?" Ryan asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "Your work, your personal life. I'm curious how you balance it all." Lily leaned back in her chair, considering the question. "I've learned that you can't compartmentalize your life," she said, her tone thoughtful. "You can't treat your job as a separate entity from your personal life. They both bleed into each other, whether you want them to or not." Ryan wasn't used to hearing such a candid answer, and it made him rethink everything. "So you don't think work-life balance is just a myth?" He couldn't help but laugh at the irony of the question coming from someone like him. "No," Lily said with a soft smile. "I think balance is about finding harmony. It's not about doing less of one thing and more of another. It's about how you fit everything into your life, and how much of yourself you're willing to give. Some days you give more to work. Other days you give more to the people you care about." Ryan didn't know how to respond. Her words hit a little too close to home. She was talking about something he had never truly allowed himself to consider, caring about someone beyond the confines of his job. He had never let anyone get close enough to him to need that kind of balance. "You make it sound easy," Ryan said quietly, unsure of what he was saying anymore. Lily laughed softly, a sound that made his heart race. "It's not easy. Nothing in life is, especially not work. But it's about what you choose to prioritize. And when you're honest with yourself about what matters, everything else falls into place." The conversation shifted to lighter topics after that, but Ryan couldn't stop thinking about what Lily had said. She had a way of seeing things clearly, without the cloud of ambition and competition that consumed so many in their world. It was almost disarming. The night went on, and Ryan found himself more and more captivated by Lily. She wasn't like the women he was used to. She wasn't looking for validation, nor did she put on any pretense to impress him. She was genuine, grounded. It was a refreshing change from the transactional relationships Ryan had cultivated throughout his career. As they finished their meal, Ryan was struck by how easy it had been to talk to her, how natural it felt to share something deeper than surface-level banter. There was no doubt about it. Lee Dawson had wormed her way under his skin, and he wasn't sure he wanted her to leave. "Thank you for this," Ryan said as they walked out of the restaurant. "It was a nice change." "I'm glad," Lily replied, her eyes sparkling in the dim light. "Sometimes you just need to get away from all the numbers and percentages." Ryan nodded, his hand instinctively reaching for his wallet. But before he could grab it, Lily's hand shot out. "I've got this one," she said firmly, catching his eye with a raised eyebrow. Ryan chuckled, momentarily caught off guard by her confidence. "You don't have to do that." Lily shrugged, unbothered. "I insist. Besides, it's not every day I get to treat a CEO to dinner." Ryan couldn't help but laugh at that. "Well, I guess that makes me your personal project now." "Not exactly," Lily said with a wink. "But maybe you'll be the one who finally teaches me how to balance my life properly." Ryan froze for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. There it was, again, the reminder that Lily wasn't just a part of his professional world. She was challenging him to think beyond the numbers, beyond the spreadsheets and board meetings. She was forcing him to confront the things he had buried for so long. "I don't know if I'm the right person for that," Ryan said slowly, his voice almost hesitant. Lily's smile softened. "We'll see, won't we?" As they parted ways that evening, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change. He had always controlled everything, from his business to his emotions. But Lily had a way of making him question the very foundation of his existence. And he wasn't sure if that scared him or excited him. All he knew was that he couldn't let her go. Not now. Not when he was starting to realize that there was something far more important than just building empires. The days after their dinner passed by quickly, but Ryan couldn't shake the sense of unrest that had followed him since. His mind kept drifting back to Lily, her words, her confidence, the way she had managed to break through the walls he'd spent years building around himself. But even more than that, it was the way she made him feel vulnerable, as though for once, someone could see beyond the polished exterior of the successful CEO. He tried to push the thoughts aside, burying himself in work, but it wasn't enough to erase the memory of her smile, or the way she had made him question everything he thought he knew about himself. The feeling lingered, like a slow burn. Lily, on the other hand, had been trying to keep her distance, or at least maintain a professional boundary. After their dinner, she couldn't help but feel a strange pull towards Ryan. She'd met many powerful men in her career, but none quite like him. Ryan was brilliant, driven, and intense. But there was something about him, something hidden deep beneath the surface, that made her want to understand him more. But Lily knew the risks. She wasn't someone who got involved with colleagues, especially not someone like Ryan. She had built her career on being independent, on not letting anyone or anything distract her from her goals. Yet every time she thought about him, she found herself questioning that principle. It was a Thursday afternoon when things took an unexpected turn. Ryan had been in back-to-back meetings all morning, his head spinning with deals, projections, and strategies. As he walked into his office, Emily handed him a new stack of files. "You've got another meeting in 30 minutes. Mr. Carter," she said, her voice efficient but soft. "This one's important. It's with Lily's team again. They've finalized the proposal." Ryan nodded, forcing himself to focus. "Thanks, Emily. Let's get this over with." He took a seat at his desk and glanced over the files, but his mind wasn't on the numbers. It was on Lily, her face, her voice, the way she challenged him. It wasn't supposed to be this way. He was the one in control. He had always been the one calling the shots, both in business and in life. But Lily had a way of making him feel like he was losing his grip. As the meeting began, Ryan noticed that the usual fire he had when negotiating wasn't there. His responses were slower, his questions less pointed. Lily, on the other hand, was still as sharp and composed as ever. She didn't seem to notice the shift in Ryan's demeanor. She was too focused on the task at hand, but something was different. During one particular exchange, Lily's eyes met his, and for a split second, he could see it the same unspoken understanding they'd shared during dinner. It was as though everything outside of that room faded away, and for just a moment, it was just the two of them. Ryan cleared his throat, trying to shake off the feeling. "We're going to need to make some adjustments to the proposal," he said, his tone colder than he intended. He wanted to regain control, to remind her who he was in this situation. Lily didn't flinch. She just nodded, her expression unreadable. Of course. Let's go over the changes. After the meeting, Ryan lingered in his office, staring out the window at the city below. His mind raced with conflicting thoughts. He had pushed Lily away, tried to keep things professional, but the distance was making him more restless than ever. He didn't want to admit it, but the truth was staring him in the face. He was drawn to her, and it terrified him. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from Lily. "Are you free for a quick chat?" Something came up regarding the proposal. Ryan stared at the message for a moment, his heart pounding. He had two choices: ignore it, keep the walls up, and continue as if nothing had changed, or let his guard down and see where this might lead. He didn't have to think for long. "I'm free. Let's talk." 20 minutes later, Ryan was sitting across from Lily in a small conference room. The air was thick with tension, but neither of them said anything at first. They just sat there, studying each other in silence. "Is everything okay with the proposal?" Ryan asked, breaking the silence. Lily nodded, but her eyes were focused on something else. "It's not about the proposal," she said softly. "It's about you." Ryan raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean?" Lily took a deep breath. "I've noticed something. You've been different lately. You're distracted, and I get you're under a lot of pressure. But I think it's more than that. Something's bothering you, and I think I'm the one who's causing it." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Was she talking about what he thought she was? The attraction, the tension. "I don't know what you mean," he said, his voice flat. He was trying to keep things casual, to avoid letting his emotions get the best of him. Lily didn't back down. "You don't have to pretend with me, Ryan. I can see it. I can feel it. You're not yourself when we're in the same room." You were conflicted. Ryan didn't know how to respond. She was right. He was conflicted, but he couldn't admit that to her, not yet. Not when he still wasn't sure what he wanted. "I'm just trying to focus on work," he said, his tone sharp. "This is a business partnership, Lily. Nothing more." Lily leaned forward slightly, her eyes never leaving his. "Is that really what you want?" she asked, her voice low and steady. "To keep it all about business? To shut everything else out?" Ryan's breath caught in his throat. He didn't answer right away, his mind swirling with confusion. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he didn't know what he wanted, that she had made him question everything he thought he knew. But instead, he just sat there, silent. Lily sighed, standing up. "I think we both know the answer, Ryan. But if you're not ready to face it yet." "I understand." She turned to leave. But Ryan's voice stopped her. Double quotes, Lily, ... Wait. She turned back, her expression softening. "Yes, I don't know what's happening here," Ryan admitted, his voice hoarse. "But I don't want to lose whatever this is." Lily smiled faintly, her gaze warm but distant. "We're not losing anything, Ryan. We're just getting started." Ryan couldn't sleep that night. The conversation with Lily kept replaying in his mind, each word, each look. He was used to being in control of everything: his company, his life, his emotions. But Lily had broken through the walls he'd built so carefully. She had seen him, really seen him, and it terrified him more than any business deal ever could. As the hours stretched on, he found himself pacing his apartment, unable to silence the thoughts racing through his head. The attraction he felt toward Lily wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was real, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. But what did that mean? What did he want from this, from her? Ryan had always thought of himself as a man of logic, a man who made decisions based on data and reason. But here, with Lily, there was no formula. There was no clear path forward. And that uncertainty was what unsettled him the most. The next morning, Ryan sat in his office, staring at the files in front of him. The usual numbers and projections that had always been his comfort zone now seemed irrelevant. He was supposed to be making key decisions for the company, but his mind kept drifting back to Lily. His phone buzzed, breaking his train of thought. It was a message from her. "I think we need to talk about last night. Let me know when you're free." Ryan stared at the screen for a moment, taking a deep breath. He knew this conversation was inevitable. He couldn't keep running from it. "I'm free in an hour. Let's meet." When Ryan arrived at the cafe where they had agreed to meet, he was greeted by the sight of Lily already seated at a corner table, her back straight, her posture confident. But as their eyes met, he could see the faint traces of uncertainty in her expressions, something he hadn't expected to see from someone like her. Lily stood up as he approached, offering a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good to see you, Ryan," she said softly, her tone neutral. Ryan sat down, his chest tight with anticipation. He knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he also knew that they couldn't avoid the truth any longer. "Lily, about last night, ... double quotes." Ryan began, his voice low. She cut him off, her eyes searching his face. "I think you know what I'm going to say. We need to stop pretending. There's something between us, Ryan, and I can't keep ignoring it. But I need to know where you stand." Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but the words didn't come out. He was used to being the one in control of every conversation, but here, with Lily, it felt like he was fumbling. He had no script, no plan. "I don't know what's happening," Ryan finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never felt this way before. About anyone." Lily's gaze softened, and for the first time, she reached across the table, her hand resting on his. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. "Ryan," she said quietly, "you don't have to have all the answers right now. I just need to know if you're willing to explore this with me. If you're willing to open yourself up to something different." Ryan looked at her, the weight of her words settling over him. She wasn't asking for a commitment. She wasn't asking him to change overnight. She was just asking him to be honest, to stop hiding behind his walls and face the reality of what they were both feeling. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I want to. I really do, but I don't know if I can. I've spent my whole life pushing people away, focusing on my work, on success. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in." Lily's hand squeezed his, her touch gentle yet firm. "We don't have to do this all at once. We can take it slow. But I'm not going to wait forever, Ryan. I can't." Ryan felt his heart racing. But this time, it wasn't out of fear, it was out of something else, something more intense. He was afraid, yes, but there was a part of him that was also excited, thrilled even, at the possibility of something real. "I don't want to lose you," Ryan said, his voice cracking slightly. "But I don't know if I can let go of everything I've built. For this, for us." Lily's expression softened, and she pulled her hand back, giving him space. "Then don't let go of everything, just ... let me in. Let me be a part of your life, in whatever way that works for you. We don't have to have it all figured out right now." Ryan nodded slowly, the weight of her words pressing down on him. Maybe he didn't have to have everything figured out. Maybe, for the first time. It was okay to not be in control. They sat in silence for a few moments, each of them processing the conversation in their own way. The air between them had shifted. The unspoken tension was still there, but it was different now. It wasn't just about business anymore. It wasn't just about the power games and the walls Ryan had so carefully constructed. It was about something more, something that Ryan wasn't sure he was ready for, but something he knew he couldn't walk away from. As Ryan left the cafe, his mind was still racing. The conversation with Lily had left him both shaken and exhilarated. He had no answers, no clear direction, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he needed them. Maybe this was the beginning of something he hadn't even known he was missing. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about how she made him feel seen, understood, in a way no one ever had before. And for once, he wasn't sure if he was ready to lose that. The days after their conversation had felt like a slow unfolding for Ryan. He couldn't stop thinking about Lilia, about her touch, her words, the way she'd made him confront his own feelings. He had spent so many years burying his emotions under the guise of professional success. But now, with her in his life, everything felt different. Ryan had always believed that success was all that mattered. He built his empire on that belief. But now, with Lily, he was starting to question if success could be enough on its own. He had everything he ever dreamed of: money, power, influence, but he also had a growing emptiness that no amount of business deals could fill. As the days passed, Ryan found himself finding excuses to check his phone, to see if Lily had messaged him. He had told himself that it was just about work after all. They were still colleagues. But deep down, he knew it was more. Lily, on the other hand, was beginning to sense the shift. The first few days after their conversation had been peaceful, almost like a breath of fresh air. They had agreed to take things slow, to not rush into anything, but Lily was starting to feel the pull of something deeper. She had always prided herself on her independence, on her ability to navigate life without needing anyone. But Ryan had changed that. She had never met anyone like him before. Someone who had it all, yet still seemed lost. Someone who, despite his power and success, was afraid of what might happen if he let someone else in. But she could see the conflict in him. He wanted something more, but he wasn't sure if he was willing to take the risk. Lily didn't know if she could keep waiting for him to make up his mind. It was a Friday evening when Ryan invited Lily to his office. The city outside was bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, but the office felt strangely cold, despite the warmth of the lights. Ryan had asked her to come by under the pretense of discussing an important business deal. But deep down, they both knew this wasn't just about work. Lily arrived on time, dressed in a sleek navy suit, her hair cascading down her back. As she walked into his office, she noticed the tension in the air. Ryan was sitting behind his desk, but he wasn't looking at the papers in front of him. He was staring at the view outside the window, his hands resting on the edge of the desk. "Ryan." Lily's voice broke the silence. "You asked to see me." Ryan turned around slowly, his eyes meeting hers. There was something different in his gaze, something vulnerable, almost hesitant. "Lily, sit down," he said quietly, gesturing to the chair in front of his desk. Lily sat down, her gaze steady as she waited for him to speak. The silence between them felt heavy, filled with unspoken words, unacknowledged feelings. "I don't know how to do this," Ryan said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I don't know how to let you in, Lily. I don't know how to let anyone in." Lily's heart tightened at the words. She had always known Ryan was guarded, but hearing him admit it aloud made her realize just how deeply his walls ran. "You don't have to have all the answers right now, Ryan," she said softly. "But you need to stop running from this." "From me?" Ryan swallowed, his throat dry. "I'm scared, Lily. I'm scared of what this might mean. I've spent my whole life building something that means everything to me. And I'm afraid if I let go of it, if I let myself care about someone, I'll lose everything." Lily stood up, moving closer to him. She reached out, her hand gently resting on his arm. "Ryan, you don't have to choose between me and your empire. I'm not asking you to give it all up. I'm asking you to let me in. Let me be a part of your life, not as an outsider, but as someone who cares about you. Someone who wants to see you succeed, not just in business, but in life." Ryan looked down at her hand on his arm, then slowly met her eyes. For the first time, he saw something in her eyes that wasn't just sympathy, was understanding. She wasn't asking him to change everything about who he was. She was asking him to open up, to share the parts of himself that he kept locked away. "I don't know how to do that," Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible. "You don't have to know how," Lily replied, her voice steady and reassuring. "You just have to try. You just have to let yourself trust me and trust yourself." Ryan felt a surge of emotion that he couldn't quite explain. He had spent so many years building walls, protecting himself from anyone who could hurt him. But Lily was different. She wasn't asking for his success or his wealth. She was asking for him, the real him. And that was the one thing he hadn't been able to give anyone. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the conversation hung in the air, thick with unspoken truths. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "Maybe we can try," he said quietly, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. "Maybe we can take it slow. But I need you to know, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to letting anyone in." Lily smiled softly, her eyes gentle. "We'll take it slow, Ryan, one step at a time." That night, Ryan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. For the first time in years, he felt like he was on the verge of something that could change everything. And despite his fear, despite his uncertainty, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. The next few weeks were a delicate balance for Ryan. He had kept his promise to take things slow with Lily, but the more time they spent together, the harder it became to ignore the undeniable chemistry between them. He'd found himself looking forward to their conversations, their meetings, and those quiet moments when it was just the two of them. No work, no expectations, just them. Yet, every time he allowed himself to get comfortable, to let his guard down, a voice in his head reminded him of the risks. What would it mean for his company, his image, his carefully curated life? Ryan was used to controlling everything, and yet, with Lily, he felt as if the control was slipping away from him, like he was finally giving up on the one thing he'd spent years building. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the first real challenge presented itself. Ryan had just finished a series of back-to-back meetings when he received a call from his CFO, Mark. "Ryan, we need to talk." Mark's voice crackled over the phone, a hint of urgency in his tone. "There's been a situation with one of our investors. We're losing some major backing." Ryan's stomach tightened. "What happened?" he asked, his mind already racing. "It's a mix of things, market conditions, a change in leadership from their side. But the big issue is that we didn't meet some of the benchmarks they were expecting. They're not happy, and we could lose millions if we don't fix this fast. Ryan exhaled sharply. All right, I'll be there in an hour. The weight of the conversation hit him immediately. Losing investors was always a danger in the tech world. But Ryan had worked hard to build a reputation for reliability and success. This setback could threaten everything he had worked for as he made his way to the conference room. His mind kept drifting back to Lily, her words. Her gentle encouragement. It was so easy to get lost in that world, to forget the battles he was fighting in the boardrooms and with investors. But now, with this new threat looming, Ryan couldn't afford distractions. He had to focus. When Ryan arrived, Mark and a few other members of the executive team were already waiting. The tension in the room was thick. Mark went over the details again, explaining the investors' dissatisfaction and their demands for immediate action. "We can't afford to let this slide," Mark said. "We need a clear response, or we risk losing them for good." Ryan's mind was racing. He knew the stakes. If they didn't resolve this quickly, the ripple effect could destroy the company's credibility. As the meeting stretched on, Ryan felt a familiar sense of pressure building. The voices around him were drowned out by his thoughts, his focus narrowing on one thing: the company. This was what mattered. This was what he had built. Lily knew something was wrong. Over the past few weeks, she had felt the shift in Ryan. He was pulling away again, retreating into himself, consumed by his work. Their texts had become more sporadic, their dinners more distant. He was still there, physically, but emotionally. Lily could feel the distance growing between them. It was a Friday evening when she decided to confront him. She had tried to give him space, to let him deal with whatever it was that was eating at him. But now, she realized, she couldn't just sit back and wait. She needed to know where they stood. She showed up at his office unannounced. It was Latrian, had been working late again, like always but tonight. Something in her refused to let him hide from her. When she walked into his office, Ryan looked up, surprised, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up, the exhaustion evident on his face. But despite the fatigue, there was a warmth in his eyes when he saw her. "Lily," he said, his voice soft, "I wasn't expecting you." "I know," she replied, stepping closer. "But I've been waiting long enough, Ryan." He raised an eyebrow, confusion flickering in his expression. "What do you mean?" Lily didn't hesitate. "You've been shutting me out. I've tried to give you space, but this is becoming something I can't ignore anymore." "What's going on?" Ryan's eyes darkened slightly, and he looked away for a moment, his jaw tightening. "It's nothing," he said quickly, but his tone betrayed him. "Just work. You know how it is." Lily crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "Don't do that. Don't hide behind work, Ryan. I know when something's wrong." For a long moment, Ryan said nothing. His mind was spinning. He wanted to be honest with her, but the weight of everything, the pressure of the company, the fear of losing control, the uncertainty of their relationship, all felt like too much. "I'm sorry," he finally said, his voice quieter. "It's just ... I'm dealing with a lot right now. Investors are pulling out, and I can't afford distractions. I can't afford to lose focus." Lily's heart tightened. She had known the pressure he was under, but hearing it from him, seeing the strain in his eyes, made her realize just how much Ryan was carrying on his shoulders. "I'm not a distraction." "Ryan," she said softly, her voice a mixture of hurt and understanding, I'm here because I care about you. But I can't keep chasing after you, waiting for you to let me in. You have to choose, Ryan. You have to decide if you want to let me in, or if this, whatever this is between us, is just going to fade away. Ryan's chest tightened. The truth of her words hit him harder than he expected. He had been so focused on the company, on keeping everything in control, that he hadn't even realized he was pushing Lily away. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the moment. I don't know how to balance it, Lily. I don't know how to let go of the control. I don't know how to make room for you in a life that's already so complicated. Lily stepped closer, her expression softening. Ryan, I'm not asking you to give up everything. I'm asking you to be real with me. I'm asking you to let me be a part of your life, no matter how complicated it is. Ryan looked at her, his heart racing. He wanted to say the right thing, wanted to make everything right. But the truth was, he didn't know how. He had spent so many years building walls, pushing people away, and now, here was Lily, asking him to tear them down. I don't know if I can, he whispered, the vulnerability in his voice raw. Lily reached out, her hand brushing against his. You don't have to know everything. You just have to take the first step. The weekend after their confrontation felt like a heavy silence hanging over Ryan. He couldn't stop thinking about Lily, about the way she had looked at him, the challenge in her eyes, and the hurt in her voice when she asked him to make a choice. She had been so honest, so direct, and yet Ryan hadn't been able to give her the answer she deserved. His mind kept replaying their conversation. Every word, every moment. For the first time in years, he felt like he was at a crossroads between his carefully structured world and something unknown, something that terrified him. The idea of letting Lily in, of being vulnerable, was almost foreign to him. He had spent so long building walls around his heart that it was difficult to imagine them coming down. But Lily had given him a choice. She wasn't going to wait forever, and Ryan knew he couldn't let her slip away. Lily, meanwhile, spent the weekend trying to focus on her work, but it was impossible to ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of her stomach. She had made her feelings clear to Ryan, and now she was waiting for him to either step forward or walk away. She had never been one to chase after someone, especially a man who seemed so closed off and guarded, but Ryan, Ryan had gotten under her skin in a way no one ever had. She had no illusions. She knew that Ryan's world wasn't easy to navigate. His life was all about control, about being the one in charge, the one who didn't let anyone see his vulnerabilities. But Lily wasn't asking him to change who he was. She wasn't asking him to abandon his career or his empire. She was simply asking him to open his heart, even just a little. It was Monday morning when Ryan walked into the office, the weight of the weekend still hanging over him. He had spent the last 2 days thinking about his next move, but now, standing in the familiar walls of his office, he realized that he couldn't keep running from this. He couldn't keep pushing Lily away. Ryan made a decision. He wasn't sure how this would turn out, but for the first time, he was willing to try. He grabbed his phone and dialed Lily's number. His heart was pounding in his chest as he waited for her to pick up. Her voice was warm, but there was a hint of hesitation. "It's me," Ryan said, his voice steady but quiet. I've been thinking about what you said. About us." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She had been waiting for this moment, but hearing his voice crack the silence was different than she had imagined. I'm sorry for shutting you out, Ryan continued. I've spent so many years building this empire, hiding behind work and success. But the truth is, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with how things have been, with you, and I don't want to lose you. Lily closed her eyes, a mix of relief and emotion washing over her. Ryan, I don't want you to lose yourself either. I just wanted you to let me in. I'm not asking you to give everything up. I'm asking you to trust me. To trust us. Ryan exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in his chest slowly ease. I don't know what this will look like, but I'm willing to try. I want to be with you, Lily. I just... I don't know how to do this. Lily's voice softened, filled with understanding. We'll figure it out together. One step at a time. We don't have to have all the answers now. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Ryan spoke again. Can I see you tonight? Lily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I'd like that. I'll meet you after work. That evening, Ryan and Lily met at a quiet bar near the city centre. The atmosphere was relaxed, the soft hum of conversation filling the air. But for Ryan, everything else faded into the background when Lily walked through the door. She looked effortlessly beautiful, her hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, a simple dress that spoke of comfort and grace. She smiled when she saw him, and for a brief moment, Ryan felt like the world outside them didn't matter. It was just him and her, and that was enough. They sat down at a small table by the window, the glow of the city lights casting a soft light over them. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I'm here, he said quietly, looking into Lily's eyes. I'm really here. I don't know where this is going, but I'm willing to take a chance. On us. Lily's smile deepened, her heart swelling with emotion. That's all I've ever wanted, Ryan. For you to be here, with me. I don't expect anything to change overnight. But this is a step in the right direction. Ryan reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was ready to face it. I don't want to lose you, Lily. I can't promise everything will be perfect, but I'll do my best. For us, Lily squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with sincerity. That's all I'm asking for. For the rest of the evening, they talked about their lives, their fears, their hopes for the future. It wasn't a grand declaration, but it was real. And in that moment, Ryan knew that he had made the right choice. As they parted ways later that night, Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't about having all the answers or having everything figured out. It was about taking a leap of faith. And for the first time in years, Ryan felt something other than control. He felt hope. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he was ready to find out, together. The weeks that followed Ryan's decision to open up to Lily were filled with small, tentative steps. They spent more time together, slowly weaving their personal lives into the fabric of their professional worlds. For the first time in a long time, Ryan was learning to balance both. He was no longer consumed solely by his company. He was learning to make room for the one thing that had eluded him for so long, true connection. But as much as things had improved, Ryan's fears still lingered. He was still uncertain about how much he could truly change. Could he really balance his career with love? Could he allow someone else into his world without losing everything? One Friday afternoon, Ryan received a phone call from Mark, his CFO, that made his blood run cold. Ryan, we've hit a major roadblock with the investors. If we don't secure additional backing soon, we could lose everything. I don't need to tell you what's at stake here. Ryan's heart sank. His first instinct was to retreat, to focus solely on the problem at hand, to bury himself in the numbers, in the strategy, to fix things the only way he knew how, through control. But then, as he sat in his office, his thoughts began to shift. He thought about Lily, about how much she had taught him about balance, about trust. Could he still follow the same old path, the one that pushed everyone away, including her? That evening, Ryan decided to take a different approach. Instead of dealing with the situation on his own, he called Lily. They met at the same bar they had been 2 weeks ago. Ryan could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, but Lily's calm presence gave him the strength to face it head on. "I need your help," Ryan said, his voice raw. "The company's in trouble. We're on the brink of losing our investors, and I don't know how to fix this." Lily looked at him carefully, her expression open but concerned. "You're not alone, Ryan. You don't have to carry all of this by yourself." "Let me help." Ryan hesitated. He had never asked for help before, not from anyone. But the look in her eyes made him realize that maybe it was time to do things differently. "Okay," he said softly. "I'm ready to listen." Lily worked alongside Ryan for the next few days, helping him strategize and navigate the crisis with a clear head and calm approach. She didn't just offer her expertise in business. She reminded him that he wasn't alone, that he could trust her just as she trusted him. It was a partnership, not just in work, but in life. By the end of the week, they had made significant progress. With Lily's guidance, Ryan was able to secure the additional backing they needed. The company's future was secure, but more importantly, Ryan had learned a valuable lesson. He didn't have to face everything alone. And, for the first time, he was ready to face the future, both in his career and with Lily by his side. Months had passed since Ryan and Lily had faced their biggest challenges together. The company was flourishing, and Ryan had found a new sense of balance in his life. He was no longer the same man he had been when they first met, cold, distant, consumed by his work. He had learned to trust, to let people in, and, most importantly, he had learned to trust himself. Ryan and Lily's relationship had grown stronger with each passing day. They had their moments of uncertainty, but every challenge they faced only made them stronger. They had built a foundation of honesty and mutual respect that they both valued deeply. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop of Ryan's penthouse, watching the city lights below, Ryan turned to Lily, his heart full of gratitude. "You were right," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I was afraid of letting go. I was afraid of losing control. But with you, I've learned that there's more to life than just success. There's love, there's partnership, and that's something I never thought I'd have." Lily smiled, her eyes sparkling in the soft light. "I'm glad you finally realized that," she teased gently. "It's not all about the business, Ryan. It's about living fully, embracing everything good and bad and doing it together." Ryan reached out and took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. He had spent so many years running from the idea of vulnerability, but now, with Lily, he realized that it was the key to everything he had ever wanted. "I want to be with you, Lily," he said, his voice sincere. "Not just in this moment, but for the rest of my life. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want to build it with you." Lily squeezed his hand, her heart racing. "I want that too, Ryan, more than anything." For the first time in his life, Ryan didn't feel the need to control everything. He didn't need to know every detail of the future. All he needed was this moment, this one moment with Lily, knowing that they had both taken the leap into the unknown, together as the city continued to glow beneath them. Ryan realized that the real success wasn't in the empire he had built, was in the love he had found. And with Lily by his side, he was ready for whatever came next.